Welcome to the Online Course Masters Show, where we learn from the best online course creators how to better create and sell our very own courses. I'm your host, Phil Ebener, and today I chat with Mosh Hamedani, who is having ultimate success in his first years as an online course creator. He has plans to take his business that launched with some programming courses such as Angular 2 to the United States from Australia, hiring extra employees to make sure that he can run a successful business and grow it to the next level. All of that coming right up. Visit onlinecoursemasters.com for show notes to watch the video version of this episode and see an archive of all our past guests. Please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. The one thing you can do for me is leave a review for the show, which helps us expand to an even larger audience. Thanks, and let's get straight to the interview. Hello, Mosh. Welcome to the show. Can you introduce yourselves to my audience?
Hi, Phil. My name is Mosh Hamedani, and I'm one of the Udemy instructors, mainly teaching computer programming courses.
Nice. So I'm so excited to have you on the show. We met actually in person at Udemy Live last year, and
You sure did.
Are you going to be there this year?
I haven't made a firm decision. I would love to, but there are a few things happening at the moment, and I don't know where I'll be at that time of the year. So
Okay.
if I'm going to be around, definitely I'm going to come.
Great. Well, it would be great to see you there. But now for my show, I'm just so excited to have you here. And I know the listeners are going to learn a lot from you. I've had one other person who teaches programming in computer kind of development courses, Maximilian Schwartzmuller. But
Yep.
I think there's a huge audience for that kind of topic. And it's so competitive, but so I think it'll be really interesting for people to hear how you're having so much success. So before we get into that, can you just talk about a little bit more about your background and what you've been doing before you started teaching online courses?
Sure. Well, I've always been a software engineer and mainly doing web and mobile application development. I had a regular job, like most people, 9 to 5, or more accurately, it was 10 to 6, because everyone in the office knew that Mosh was the last person walking in and walking out of the office. So that was my life. Just go to work, come back home, cook, next day go to work like a machine.
Nice. Is this in Melbourne where you're at now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. So was this for like a big company or a small company or what was that like?
Different situations. I worked with government agencies and also private sector.
Okay, got it. Yeah, well, I remember that. And are you still working at that job right now, or are you doing online
No.
courses full time?
No, I quitted that a while ago. At the moment, I'm doing online courses, but sometimes I get contracts, but these are short-term contracts. So I may go and do something for 2-3 months just for a change and also to be in the industry. But I don't want to have that lifestyle anymore.
Got it. Yeah, no, totally. That's very similar to, I think, a lot of online course creators who are doing that kind of full time. And like me, I do online courses full time, but I still do video editing and video projects. And it's nice to still go and actually do the work and do what we're teaching about. But of course, online courses give us so much more freedom and the revenue is more scalable than a full-time job. So how do you learn about online teaching and courses, and when did you get started with online courses?
Well, this is, I think 3-4 years ago, I saw an ad on Facebook that took me to Udemy, and I saw one of the instructors, and just out of curiosity, I saw that he had, I think, maybe 50,000 students, and his course was priced $100 or $200. And I said, wow, this man is a millionaire. And that's what a lot of people who are new to Udemy think when they come to our pages. They think, oh, we're billionaires.
Yeah.
It's not really like that. But that inspired me to think of this as a part-time job that I would do next to my full-time job. But like most people who want to start out, I didn't have time for it. By the time I got home, I was so tired. And at some point, I decided I didn't want to work in that job anymore. So I quitted my job, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to look for a new job. I'm going to take a risk here and create a course. And honestly, I didn't have the confidence first in terms of speaking in the microphone, or I know nothing about audio and video production. So I thought the easiest step was to write an ebook. So I published an ebook on Amazon called The Blueprint for a Productive Programmer. And that didn't work. I think, honestly, over 2 years, I've probably made $100 from that book.
Okay.
So,
not a full-time salary.
yeah. And then I created my first course for Udemy, which was a 2-hour course called Double Your Coding Speed, where I talk about various shortcuts to write code fast. And that was a free course. So I immediately got about 1,000 students over a few days. And then when I turned that into a paid course, nothing. Mm-hmm. And then Udemy published a list of on-demand topics. And I found something there that I knew really well. And I thought, okay, I'm going to create something that is popular. Probably this is going to work. So I spent 6 weeks to create a 6-hour course. And I was still not looking for a job. I was working at home, living off my savings. And guess what? That didn't work either. I hardly made any sales. And I did a lot of research. I looked at some of courses on Udemy about succeeding on Udemy. One of the instructors whose courses I saw was yourself. I saw courses of Alan Hill on YouTube marketing and stuff like that. And then eventually I decided that this is not going to work. So I started looking for a job. I went to a few interviews, and then I found something that I wanted to do, but I was not going to start straight away. So they said you will start in 3 weeks. And I said, well, I have 3 weeks. I don't want to waste my time. Maybe I should do another course. So I was very determined. And I published my third course on Udemy, which is called C# Advanced. And that started to pick a little bit. And I thought, okay, that has potential. At least this has given me a little bit that makes me think I have achieved something, as opposed to the last 2 courses that were completely not waste of time, but financially they were not rewarding at all.
Yeah, and were those first couple of courses, were they making any money at all, or was it just nothing?
Like $100.
Okay.
But think of working 6 weeks for $100.
Yes.
I could work as a waiter and make 10 times more money.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and then from C# Advanced, it kind of peaked. And then I got a lot of students asking me for other topics that I knew really well. And then somehow my focus changed from making money to having this as a passion, because being in touch with my students and knowing about their dilemmas, which were the dilemmas that I had several years ago, and being able to help them was something that got me going. So I remember when I was going to work full-time, on the way to work, I used to catch public transport, and I had a notebook. Every day I used to write all these things I wanted to teach. I wrote down scripts, I wrote down the topics, the list of sections and lectures and course titles. So I was constantly coming up with different ideas. And guess what? I went to work and I had to do boring stuff. So yeah, basically that's how I started teaching on Udemy.
Nice. Well, that's really interesting. And actually, you're the first person that has had that kind of a path in the sense that you actually left your job, or your job ended, and you were like, I'm just going to do this full time. So you dedicated a lot of time, but it also didn't work out. And it's actually a good lesson to learn that, if you would have just had a lot of success in the beginning, well, that might have been better. It might have helped you, get started faster, but it's also good to, learn what works and what didn't work. And I think with topic selection and those kinds of things, you had to learn what the right course topics were that worked and didn't work. So that's the start of your journey, and now you're doing this full time, which is amazing. So can you fast forward to like today and talk about maybe the other courses that you've launched, the successes you've had, and how it's kind of changed your life to this day?
Yeah, basically most of my success came last year when I published a course on Angular 2 and ASP.NET MVC. And basically, this has given me a lot of freedom in the sense that I work on the projects that I am interested in as opposed to projects that are of interest to others. It gives me freedom that I can work anytime, anywhere. Sometimes I'm working from my home office. Sometimes I'm sitting on the couch watching TV and also writing scripts. Sometimes I go to the cafe nearby. It just depends on my mood. I usually change location because that also helps with my creativity. And also last year, I traveled 4 times. I went 3 times to the US and once to Bali. Now, they were short trips, like every time it was 10 to 14 days. But you know that if you're working for someone full time, they don't give you a chance to travel 4 times in a year.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Even in
yeah,
Australia where you get a lot of vacation, that's still pretty difficult to do.
absolutely.
Man, well, that's the beauty of teaching online. And I feel like our day to day is very similar. I spend a lot of time just at home, but recently I've been trying to just get out and I'm very frugal actually. So even like going to a coffee shop for me is like, oh, I don't want to, like, why am I spending my money at a coffee shop? I could just stay home. But it's like so nice to just get outside and to be in the world. And even if I'm not interacting with other people, like in a workplace setting, just getting out and interacting with people in my day-to-day life has been really nice the past few weeks. I've kind of started doing that a little bit more myself. So in terms
Right.
of maybe, for example, this week, I think people want to hear kind of like more about your day-to-day life as a full-time online course creator. What are you like working on today? Like, what's your schedule like today? And what kinds of things, how do you balance your time between course creation and any of the other things you're working on?
All right, let's say today I'm going to work on a new section for one of my existing courses. So I spent from 1 to 3 days on planning out exactly lecture by lecture what I'm going to teach in that section, the exercises I'm going to use, the examples I'm going to use, and I constantly modify them. So it's not like I come up with something and that's it. No, I'm very self-critical of myself. I constantly go over my exercises and change them, making sure they're at the right level of complexity. So 1 to 3 days is planning, and then the next 2, 3 days I spend on recording and post-production.
That's pretty efficient. I mean, that's like a week. In a week, you can record a class. Is that kind of how, like, realistically, how long it takes for you to create an entire course?
No, just one section.
Oh, a section. Wow. Well,
which is somewhere about between 40 to 60 minutes.
wow. Okay. Well, I mean, that's also on the opposite side. That's actually a lot of work for a single section, which I think comes across in your courses. And I want to talk more about your exercises and that kind of stuff later. But wow, you're actually putting a lot of time into your sections
Absolutely.
and coming up
Absolutely.
with your exercises. That's pretty, I mean, I think that just comes across when you look at your courses, and I'm on Udemy and I'm just looking at your course page, and you have looks like 11 courses live now that are public. And I mean, it's all 4.5, 5-star reviews and thousands of reviews in your courses. So, the work that you're doing is really paying off, which is exciting. In terms of in creating an actual course, you mentioned that when you started, you didn't know anything about video production or anything like that. What equipment did you start out with, and has that changed over time?
Not at all. I started with a USB microphone. It's the Afix brand. It's actually not that popular, but it has worked well for me. And I think it's around probably $200-300.
Okay.
And I also got a pop filter. So that's what I started out with. And then at some point, my account manager on Udemy encouraged me to do talk and hit videos. So that was a big shift. And I spent about a month to learn about this stuff and research. And then I had a DSLR camera. Actually, no, I had to get another DSLR because my camera didn't record videos.
Okay.
So I have a Canon T6i, which is around $800, I think.
Mm-hmm.
A standard lens, nothing too fancy. I got a basic light kit from eBay or Amazon. So it's I have 2 lights on the side and 1 across. Also got a lav mic. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
lav mic. You call it lav?
Yep.
Yeah. A lav mic, it's a Rode brand.
Okay.
Not quite happy with that. I spent a fair amount of money on that, about $200, but the quality is like I'm in a box. It doesn't sound very sharp to me.
Okay.
So these are the equipment, and in terms of software, I use Adobe Audition for post-processing of my audio, and most of my videos are captured and edited in Camtasia, and sometimes I use Final Cut Pro for when I want to have more fancy stuff.
Got it. Cool. Very cool. Well, that's, it's all the basic equipment that you need, and it's, cool that you can start out with that and you're still using sort of the similar equipment now. In terms of that lighting kit, you mentioned it was a kind of like inexpensive one from Amazon or eBay. Was that just one of those standard ones that has like fluorescent light bulbs and it has like a chimera? I forget it's called a chimera, but it's like a filter that softens the light, a softbox.
Absolutely.
Is that just one of those cheap ones that you see when you search for lighting kit?
Absolutely. And it's actually so bad that when I try to put it together, it doesn't fit really well. And one of them looks a little bit asymmetrical. Okay. But what I like about it is that it has 5 buttons where you can change the intensity of the light. And that has helped me a lot in terms of making sure that I'm not overexposed or underexposed.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's something that would be very helpful for people who aren't as good with changing or with their camera. Maybe their camera doesn't have a lot of settings, but being able to control the light, the power is a good idea. So that's cool. I mean, use whatever you got. I mean, I'm using probably like $50 lighting setup myself, kind of a DIY lighting setup with some paper lanterns. And even though I did have a professional lighting kit before, I still use this cheap setup because it works just fine. So I always suggest to people to just kind of start with what they have.
Absolutely.
Also, in terms of starting out, what you taught a C# course, and then you moved into Angular and these other topics. But have you done any research or keyword research about topic selection, or how do you go about picking your next courses?
Honestly, no.
That's great. That's fine.
I am not one of those instructors that do a lot of market research, because I don't have a big financial goal in mind. So I mostly focus on things that I love myself and things that I can teach well. And I believe that with that, money comes. So it's not my focus in terms of doing a lot of market research and keyword analysis. And also, I get a lot of emails from students telling me, "Mosh, can you teach a course on that topic?" Also, another thing that I have done that has proven to be successful is, like once a year, I send out a survey. So I created a Google form, send it to my students, excuse me, and ask them, "What do you want me to teach?" Mm-hmm. And I list a few topics that I know I'm ready to teach, and let them vote, and then I make a decision based on that.
That's a really good idea. I think everyone should be doing that. And as of now, it's totally fine for Udemy instructors to send out surveys via the educational announcements to a survey, as long as you don't ask or require for their email addresses or it's not promotional in any way. But I actually just talked to my Udemy account manager about this idea, and she said, "Yeah, go ahead and do that." And another thing you can do is, in those surveys or in a separate survey, you can ask people what they expect in a specific topic. So if you're teaching a course on Angular 2, you can ask them what they would expect in that course, and you have a better idea of exactly what your students are looking for. So surveys, absolutely. I love that idea. Cool. So that's how you kind of pick a course topic. But programming languages and computer development, all these topics that I don't really know anything about, they seem so competitive, especially on Udemy. So do you have any advice for people who know these topics and want to get into it, and either in terms of coming up with the topics or just creating the courses the way that you create a course that students like, teaching like programming languages? Do you have any advice about that?
My only advice is teach what they know really well, what they're passionate about, because that would come out in their delivery. And I believe a big part of their success will be dependent upon that.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's important. I know some people who try to even teach programming languages and they don't know that much about it, and their courses end up not getting as high a rating. For your courses, what do they actually look like for a student? Like when they're watching a course, are they just screencast following you? I don't even know how like programming languages work. So maybe you can explain a little bit to me.
Sure.
But like, how does it look to a student? Are you just like doing a screencast, teaching them how to build certain projects or what?
Yeah, the past few courses, at the beginning of each section, I have an introduction lecture, which is a talk and head video for 30 to 60 seconds. I basically tell them what they're going to learn in this section and what are the benefits. And then it gets to a screencast. It's mainly an editor where we write code. And then at the end of the section, I have exercises and a summary lecture, which is like a quick recap of what they have learned. And that's keynote.
Got it. So very structured, which I like, is you got the intro, especially with the benefits you mentioned, sharing the benefit that the students get. I think that alone will make your students happier and feel more accomplished. And it kind of helps them understand if they want to even take that section or not. I imagine in your classes, a lot of people would want to take every section of the course. But for some of my courses, I find that some sections in photography classes, for example, some people don't even want or don't even care about, so they'll just skip it. So I think having those intro lessons are really good. You talked about exercises, and actually my Udemy advisor referred me to your course when she was talking about exercises, and she had me watch a couple of your exercise lessons, which were really good because you were there on camera for some of them explaining what it was, and then you listed out the steps of the actual exercise. What advice do you have for creating engaging exercise courses with exercises?
My exercises are based on real world scenarios. And I think that's what my students love about it. Because they do something that it's not necessarily a guarantee they're going to see something like that in their career, but at least it's something that makes sense. And I also spend a lot of time on making sure they have the right level of complexity. So they're not too easy that they think, oh, that was like, what was the point of that?
Right.
Or not too complex that they feel disappointed at themselves. And I make sure to order them. So if there are multiple exercises, I make sure that they start really easy and then gradually get more complex. That's pretty much the formula that I use in all my courses.
Are you enjoying this episode? We hope you're learning to become a better course creator. If you want to fast track your success, get the free 7-step guide to success at onlinecoursemasters.com. Now let's get back to the show. Another thing that my advisor told me, and she showed me in your lectures, is that you use a song, I think, or a specific song in your exercise videos. And maybe that's true, maybe not, but it kind of cues the student that, hey, this is an exercise lesson. And so that's something I've been doing too, is like I'll use a certain song for my exercise lessons.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
I love that idea because it just kind of trains your students to be prepared and to know when they hear that song that this is an exercise lesson. I
actually came up with that idea last year when I was doing my Angular course. I wanted to do a few creative ideas, and that was something I came up with. But interesting, until this moment, I didn't know if it actually worked in terms of engaging students or not. I just hear it from you because I didn't look at the data.
Well, Udemy told me that was a good idea, so hopefully it's helping somehow. Yeah, totally. I mean, have you seen that your courses, do you have exercises in all of your courses now?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Have you seen...
Not all of them, but let's say 70%.
Okay. And do you see more engagement in the courses with exercises?
Again, honestly, I'm terrible at looking at...
It's hard to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, With all your courses that are so popular, how do you even stay up with all the assignments and questions? And that's one thing I'm struggling with. Are you finding it hard to find time to respond to all of your student questions and exercises and everything?
Oh man, don't tell me about it. It's my biggest challenge at the moment for the past year. Um, I get several tens or sometimes hundreds of messages a day, um, because on YouTube I have about 46,000 subscribers. So people are constantly commenting, asking questions there. I have people who send me email via my blog. I have people who send me email directly because I don't know, somehow they find my email somewhere. I have people who send me questions on in the private messaging on Udemy, and people who comment on discussion boards, post questions there. And people who also contact on Twitter. So when you add them all together, it's definitely more than 100 messages a day. And you do the math. If I want to sit down and answer every question, I literally have to spend the entire day answering people's questions, because it's not a matter of typing for 2 minutes. Sometimes I need to think 5 minutes, or I need to research something because I don't know everything, right? Sometimes I also have to go to Google. I'm a student myself, right? So at the moment, it's my biggest challenge. I sometimes, let's say once a week, I spend an hour going through these questions on a random basis. So it's not necessarily what came first. It's whoever was lucky at that point. I see the question. If I'm ready mentally to answer that, I do it. But I'm planning to extend my team on one and have people on my behalf who are expert in the areas that I teach, so they can answer questions and help my students on my behalf.
Yeah, man. Well, you feel my pain. I think you're one of the people like similar to me that is getting this about the same amount of questions per day. And I imagine for you, some of the stuff is even more time intensive because you might be having to look at someone's code that they're writing or something like that, I imagine. And that just seems like it would take forever. But like you said, for me, sometimes I find questions that I don't know the answer to, so I have to go research it. But of course, at the end of the day, that's part of the job. And I try to remind myself that, this is awesome what I'm doing, and I wouldn't be here without the students. So I shouldn't complain too much. But at the same time, it keeps me away from doing other things like creating new content or courses or marketing that helps grow the business. But you got to do it if you're going to be an instructor. Are there any ways that any like efficiency tips or anything you're doing to be more efficient with your questions?
Not really, because as I said, I don't have success in this area myself.
Yeah.
So for instructors who will start out, I highly encourage you to answer every single student's questions. Talk to them. I used to reach out to my students myself. I used to message them and say, how do you find the course? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What else do you want to learn? And honestly, I love doing that. I love to be in touch with my students. I heard a lot of their stories, their challenges, and that inspired me to write my new blog posts and design new courses and basically help them. But these days, I really can't do that. I don't have that much time.
Yeah.
So people at our level, I think we need to delegate to others to help our students, because you're absolutely right. A big part of our success is our student support. So we can't leave them.
Yeah. Well, I know you have some big plans for your business I want to talk about in a couple minutes, but I do have one efficiency tip that I want to tell you and the listeners that I actually just learned about last week from a podcast on Side Hustle Nation. Nick Loper interviewed John Lee Dumas, and they're both using this Google Chrome extension called Auto Text Expander. And I'll link to it in the show notes, but I installed it today, and it's absolutely amazing because it's basically keyboard shortcuts for canned responses. And I find myself responding to some of my questions the same way every time. Like, yeah, there's a lot that are very specific, but a lot of times I have a sort of a canned response that I give. And so you can literally like type out a paragraph or a sentence or include links. Like, for example, one thing that I constantly have to email my users, my Udemy students about is if they're having playback issues or any issues with Udemy, the Udemy site, if they want a refund or the videos aren't playing. And so I'm always telling them, okay, you can go to Udemy support and send them a new message. You know, I don't really have control over this, but I just set up a keyboard shortcut with this auto text expander that whenever I press U3, it auto paste this whole paragraph wherever. So it could be in Udemy, it could be in your email. It's just kind of like a keyboard shortcut for Google Chrome. So I would check that out, because as soon as I started using this just yesterday, I was like, man, this is going to actually save me a lot of time. So that's just a quick tip for you and for everyone listening.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Phil.
Yeah, totally. Auto text expander. I'll link to it in the show notes. Cool. So when you started, it sounded like you didn't really have an audience of your own. Is that true?
Absolutely. I started with no students, 0.
Okay. So, and you had it seems like it was kind of organic. You had the free course, then you had you had your course that you went from free to paid. What other ways were you trying to build your audience on and off of Udemy?
I usually use YouTube and my blog. These are my main channels. Also use Facebook and Twitter, but I don't think I get much traffic from there, mainly because I don't have enough time for managing that.
Yeah.
But on YouTube, I upload parts of my courses, like videos that are from, say, 5 minutes to 20, 30 minutes. I put them on YouTube as something free and educational. And then in the YouTube, I put announcements or text in the video description saying this is part of my course on Udemy. If you're interested, you can get it with a discount. That has worked reasonably well for me. And similarly, on my blog, I write articles. I make sure that they give value to my audience. It's not just some advertisement, because people are sick of advertisements. So yeah, I write something educational, and at the end I say, hey, I have other courses if you want to learn more. And I also engage them to join my mailing list. Anyone who joins my mailing list, I give them discounts.
Got it. I was going to ask.
So this is like
I was going to ask about that. Are you sending people directly to your Udemy courses from like YouTube or your blog, or through an email list?
Yeah, directly to Udemy.
Okay, directly to Udemy, but you're also trying to get people on your email list as well.
So people who go to my blog, this is interesting. I used to link directly to Udemy from my blog, and I believe that's still the case. Yes, that's still the case. But they don't get as much discount as opposed to people who join my mailing list.
That's cool. That's a good little kind of lead magnet bonus that people can give away to get people to subscribe or enroll in your email list. That's cool. I find a lot of people, saying that you should definitely send your traffic to an email list and not straight to Udemy. But I find that I send people directly to Udemy through my YouTube videos and my blog too, because once someone goes onto the Udemy page, you do kind of lose control of that student, but at the same time, Udemy will start retargeting their own ads to that person. So it's kind of a benefit. There's the pros and cons to it, but if you can drive a lot of traffic to your Udemy courses, I think it will help in the long run too. Cool. Okay, so you talked about your YouTube strategy, putting some content on from your classes. Are you creating separate videos? Did you mention this? Are you creating just separate, completely unique tutorials for YouTube, or is it all content from your courses?
I was planning to, and I made a few steps on that, but I couldn't cope because of the lack of time. I was planning to do like a nightly show. What's that called? Late hour question and answer with Mosh, something like that, with jazz music. I love that kind of shows. So it was very time consuming to produce those 5 minutes, and I answered students' questions that are repetitive. And unfortunately, I couldn't do it anymore. but
Yeah.
I'm planning to get back to it hopefully in the future.
Yeah, cool. I mean, that's something I'm actually doing with a couple of my classes. I am doing sort of a monthly hour-long Q&A session, a live Q&A session, and I invite everyone that's on my email list and a part of that course to attend. One's for video production and one's for online teaching. And even though it's a lot of extra content, it's really great content. And some people might say, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that for Udemy courses. You should only be doing that in a very expensive premium course. I find that it just adds a lot of value. People love it. And I also end up putting that content on YouTube for free, and people end up finding it and hopefully ultimately enrolling in the class because they find it on YouTube. So I like that idea.
Great idea.
Yeah. Cool. So what are your plans for the next couple of years? You're doing this full time, but how do you take it to the next level?
Well, currently I have 56,000 students on Udemy, and I'm planning to take this up to 150,000 students over the next 2 to 3 years. So that means I'm going to expand my team of one, have people who can assist with my production as well as customer support, so I can free up some time and add more content to my courses.
Nice. And that sounds awesome. You talked about how you're moving to LA and you're going to be doing that. What has been I know you haven't really hired anybody so yet, I don't think, but what's your process for actually finding someone that you can, partner with or trust to answer questions and to help you out? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, not yet. I'm still working on it. But the initial idea I have is to give them an interview, like a technical interview. So get the questions that I get on discussion board and selectively pick 10 to 20 questions, interview them myself to make sure they're at the right knowledge, and ask them to answer these questions so I can see their communication skills as well. And yeah, the rest is just, I don't know.
That's good.
Give them the job and see how that performs.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea actually, about having them actually answer questions. I mean, I've had the same thought, like I should really find someone to help me answer all my questions, but I always feel like, well, I need someone who knows a lot about a lot of topics, kind of like I do. And so how do I find that person? But maybe it's just, testing people. And are you planning on hiring someone full time, like in LA, or are you looking to do like outsourcing or a virtual assistant?
I'm still working on it. I don't have a concrete plan. But Phil, you mentioned that you need someone who knows a lot about a lot of topics. I have the same dilemma myself. But I realize I don't have to find someone who knows all of these topics. I can have 2 or 3 different people specialize in different areas.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. And that's really true. And I think even if I can't find someone to answer all the questions, if I could find someone to help with some of the questions, or even just take away like video editing, my courses and my YouTube videos, then that would free up so much time for me and any online course creator. If you could magically make video editing disappear, you would have so much extra time to do everything. Absolutely. So that's kind of the golden ticket right now. I find I'm talking to a lot of other instructors about how do we outsource our video editing? Because there's not like a website or a service that's set up to do this easily. You kind of have to go out and find the editor yourself, and it's a bit harder than it could be. But that's another business for another person to start. So what's your final piece of advice for someone who wants to get into teaching online, but they haven't started? Maybe they're like you when you ended your job and they're like, oh, I need to make some extra income. I've heard about online teaching, but I don't know exactly how to get started. Do you have any sort of final piece of advice for them?
The only thing I can tell them is stop what you're doing right now and make the first step. Because a lot of people just talk about it. I've talked to a lot of people. I say, have you considered doing that? And I have asked this question over a period of, let's say, 1 or 2 years. And after 2 years, they still say, yeah, I want to do this and that, blah, blah, blah. And they never do it. So the reality is, if you don't make the first step, it's not going to happen. And when I say make the first step, that means right now, at this very moment, get in your car, go buy a microphone, come back home. Or, as simple as that. Make the first step. Write down a list of topics. Drill down. Look at design your section structure. How many sections? What are those sections going to be called? What lectures? Tomorrow start recording. Okay, you have a full-time job? I totally understand. Make time to do that. Take one day off or work on weekend. That's what I used to do. I used to work after hours or on the weekends. So I didn't come from a different planet. I didn't live 48-hour days. I started exactly in the same boat. So you have no excuses.
Yeah.
You have to make the first step.
Just do it. I love it. And that's always been my advice too. And just like you, I was starting out doing this, after my full-time job. And I know it's harder for some people who have families or different levels of responsibility, but it's going to be worth it in the end if you put in the time now, because it's not completely passive income, but it is something where you put a lot of effort in at the beginning, and then hopefully after you launch your course, it's a little bit less effort and it will pay you back greatly in the long run. Cool, Mosh.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been really fun. Where can people find you online if they want to get in touch with you, find out more about your courses or anything like that?
Yeah, the best way is to head over to my website, which is also my blog, programmingwithmosh.com.
Awesome. Programming.
And from there, they can find my YouTube channel, programmingwithmosh.com.
Got it. Cool.
And from there, you can find my Facebook page, YouTube, Twitter, everything.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, neat. Well, and one thing I always tell people is the best way to learn is to just see how other people do it. So head over to Mosh's website and see what he's up to on Twitter. Sign up for his email list to see what kinds of emails he's sending out and enroll in some of his courses to see what he's doing. So Mosh, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully I get to see you at Udemy Live. If not, I'll see you in LA when you land.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks very much. It was great.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember, there's no better way to learn how to create and sell online courses than heading over to onlinecoursemasters.com and downloading your free 7-step guide to success. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the show wherever you listen and make sure to leave a rating. If you do, I might even read it on a future show. Help us reach our first 100 ratings. It'll just take 1 extra minute of your time. Thanks, have a beautiful day, and we'll see you next week on the next episode.